Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and that is if you're struggling to lose fat in your midsection, here's why that happens and what we can do about it. My kind of evolution around this is, oh, hey, you just need to lose body fat, which, as I'll dive into, that is part of the problem here, right? But there are some things that, if are out of that we're not focused on, and some common things that I see with people. This can cause you to potentially not lose as much body fat in your midsection, even if you are in a calorie deficit. So I want to go over what those are. And again, some kind of common overlooked things, just because I have a lot of clients that, hey, my midsection's not as leaner as it used to be. Again, these are people usually in their 30s or older, right? Again, I don't feel as lean in my midsection. Hey, I really want to just lose body fat. Most people want to see their midsection go down, and they're just wondering why some of these things are going on. And sometimes it is a body fat issue, and then sometimes it's not. So let's dive into it. So the first one is going to be overall body fat percentage. At the end of the day, we can't spot reduce, at least meaningfully. We probably can do some things to maybe make certain areas look leaner in terms of like resistance training. And again, what I'm going to go over today, we can make sure that at least some of the body fat we're losing is more coming from the midsection, some things that we can do here. But again, midsection leanness is more about lowering your total body fat. So this just comes down to the fact that most people have more body fat and less muscle than they think, unfortunately, right? And again, this comes down to one, maybe again, they just haven't really trained before. So that obviously is going to be a big thing. But then again, a lot of people go about their fitness journey and with methods that aren't great from a overall body composition standpoint. Again, this isn't necessarily anyone's fault. It's just usually the information that's out there. And again, what people perceive as to be the right things to do versus what actually is the right thing to do. And again, it comes down to marketing, what people market, what people say, the mindset towards fitness and nutrition and whatnot there. But at the end of the day, the biggest reason why most people aren't as lean in their midsection as they want to be is they're just not lean enough. And again, we need to, in order to get leaner, we need to create an energy deficit, and we need to make sure that our body weight, not only focus on our body weight, but we want to make sure we're in an energy deficit and we're dropping body fat, because that's going to be the thing that is going to allow you to get leaner. And most of the time, it's going to be from the fact that, hey, you probably need to drop a little bit more body fat. In some cases, you need to drop a lot more body fat. People will underestimate how much body fat they have and overestimate how much muscle they have there. Just because, again, if you look, I think I saw something on, was like, again, most people think they're 10% body fat, but really the majority of people aren't even like 15 to 20% body fat. And we're talking men here, there. So again, we just need to drop overall all body fat and being honest with where we're actually at. But in saying that, some people aren't necessarily overweight and they struggle with getting lean in their midsection, right? Again, if you're, let's say, again, you're over 15 to 20% as a male, over 30% is female, let's say 28 to 30% is female. Again, you don't necessarily need to get caught up in exact numbers, but again, if we have waist measurements that are in the mid 30s or higher, again, chances are it's like you need to just drop some overall body fat, right? Again, maybe you're still going to be someone who struggles with it all just coming off in your midsection. But at the end of the day, that's the first thing, because like I said, we cannot spot reduce. And losing body fat in today's modern environment is super challenging. So most people, they can get into a deficit for short periods of time, but it's that long-term 6, 12, 18 weeks of fat loss dieting where most people struggle, right? They can do it for 3 weeks, but where you're really going to see the bulk of your fat loss is being able to do it over extended periods of time. And again, this is going to be different for everyone. Not everyone necessarily needs to be in a huge energy deficit and needs to lose a ton of weight, but there's also the majority of people out there that do need to drop some body fat. So that's the first thing. You can't just do crunches, and you can't just be like, oh, hey, I'm going to restrict my calories to 1,000 for 3 weeks and I'm going to have abs, or I'm going to be leaner in my midsection. Again, it's not going to happen. So number two, and this is going to be common for people that maybe you are in a calorie deficit, maybe you are not necessarily like super overweight, but your nutrition and diet quality. So consuming too many highly processed foods, added sugars, and like alcohol can lead to water retention and inflammation, making your midsection appear puffier, right? And these also all lead to an increased risk of being at maintenance or a calorie surplus if you're not lean enough yet, okay? Again, all these things make it more challenging to actually stick to a calorie deficit, especially if you're someone who maybe you track and then you add in some of these foods, you don't log all of them, and then you think you're in a calorie deficit, but you're not actually, right? But yes, focusing on your calories and macros can help, because that is what's going to help you manage your body weight. But You also need to focus on eating nutrient-dense foods, right? So lean protein, veggies, fruits, whole grains, and this can help reduce inflammation and to support fat loss and muscle gain. Again, a lot of times when we have these foods that are highly processed, added sugars, alcohol, again, I'm a huge fan of allowing some of these things into your diet. This doesn't mean you need to cut them out completely. If we're looking at our overall caloric intake, maybe you are hitting your calorie amount, but a lot of these foods are made up of these things. So you're like, oh, hey, I can be flexible with it. Again, these could be some things that cause you to be a little bit puffier in your midsection. So then you feel like you're not losing weight in your midsection, but it's really your nutrition choices. Poor sleep / circadian rhythm hygiene. Lack of sleep quantity and or quality can impact your hormones and lead to an increase in our stress hormone cortisol, which leads to this kind of preference towards midsection fat storage. It can also lead to higher hunger and cravings and lower motivation overall, equals a tougher time getting into a calorie deficit. Yes, it's this direct effect of this can increase cortisol, which in turn does lead to your body starting to store a little bit more in your midsection. So there's that. But then also it's just the indirect effects of higher hunger makes it harder to get into a calorie deficit. So it's both things that are playing a role here in this, right? So again, this is something that is most people have at least two things that they could do to maximize their sleep, not even maximize it, to just make it better. There's probably a whole list of other things that people could do there, but also circadian rhythm being just like, hey, you're doing things late at night that your body just isn't in a great position to do. And when your circadian rhythm health is out of whack, it's just nothing runs as efficiently as it should. And again, I think this is a big problem in today's modern environment, right? We're inside all the time. We're on our phone late at night. We're watching TV late at night. We're eating meals late at night, like right before bed, stuff like that. So it's just easy for this to be out of whack when we think about how we evolved, we probably were outside a lot. Again, maybe not, you're not just getting a ton of sun all day long, but we were outside more. We didn't have these lights at night that messed with our melatonin production and stuff like that. So again, and also with cortisol, it's not that we don't want any cortisol. Like we do want some, we do need some, but it's when it's chronically high or elevated that it can start to become an issue there. So number 4, too much chronic stress and poor methods to manage that stress. So again, high chronic stress can raise cortisol, which can increase appetite and promote midsection fat storage. So again, a high chronic stress. And I would say not only chronic stress in terms of, oh, hey, you're stressed because work, right? That's where most people think about stress of, man, I just feel stressed. I'm not like pissed off at my boss, or I'm not pissed off at so-and-so. That means I don't have any stress. When stress, we need to look at stress on the body. And again, a circadian rhythm that isn't optimized is at least somewhat of a stressor on the body. Yes, you getting upset at something stupid is a stressor on the body. You scrolling social media and getting upset every time you read it, that is a small chronic stressor on the body. Body fat levels, again, if our body fat levels are too high, that can be something that is a stressor on the body. Again, certain foods like that can be a stressor on the body. And then on top of it, we don't have good methods to manage it. So again, we manage our stress by eating tasty food, right? Binge watching TV, alcohol, right? So again, alcohol, another stressor on the body, right? So all these things that I'm going to talk about today are some stressors on the body, but then also even like too much exercise relative to your stress management, to your sleep, relative to your diet quality, relative to how much food you are eating, right? So if you're someone who's trying to lose body fat, you're not eating very well, like you're eating low calorie, but it's not very nutritious. Your macros are out of balance. You're not sleeping very well. You're just really pushing training, going balls to the wall every time you train. Again, that's a stressor on the body, and that can be something that can lead to some of this as well too. So it's not only that, but and then you have people who don't exercise enough, and that is a stressor on the body. But again, if they're not exercising enough, they're probably someone who isn't necessarily, we need to decrease their body fat percentage as well too. So number 5, and again, I just went over a lot of these because again, these are all stressors on the body, which in turn is going to lead to this, but low activity and movement levels. Low daily activity outside of your dedicated training can reduce your overall calorie burn, can negatively impact insulin sensitivity and gut health, and impact appetite regulation. So again, if these are off, this could be something that could be impacting your ability to drop body fat in your midsection and just body fat in general, right? So again, here with this, we want to make sure that we aim for 6 to 10K steps outside of training sessions. Again, also with like a blood sugar regulation, insulin sensitivity standpoint, movement outside of the gym has been shown to help with that. If that is something that we're not, again, you don't need to maximize it, but if we're not doing things in our favor there with that could impact this as well too. Poorly managed training stressors. So again, this was something I just mentioned, but if you just go to work out to burn the most calories and feel beat up with no form of progression on top of poor diet quality, again, all the other stressors we talked about, poor sleep, you're just going to add to your stressors, right? So again, this is going to increase that risk of fat gain in your midsection or a tougher time losing fat in your midsection with no training adaptations, right? Also, a lack of muscle and poor cardiovascular fitness from your poor training methods despite working out can lead to a higher risk of fat gain / tougher time losing fat in the midsection. This is your typical like someone who, hey, I really am not happy with my body fat in my midsection, right? And then then so they do everything they can to try to drop body fat. So they're going super low calorie, they're skipping meals, right? Because they think that's what's gonna help them lose fat. And then their training is just literally this training that is super high intense. Hey, I'm just gonna push myself as hard as I can. I just want to get my heart rate as high as possible when I can. I want my exertion to be as high as possible all the time. And again, if we're not also, for one, you're not really going to get any sort of training adaptation other than like it just being a hard workout, which again, if that's what you're going for, okay, that's fine. But again, to me, if we're going to go train and spend that time doing that, we want to get some sort of adaptation. I just feel like usually that sort of training just leads to this like just general maybe small improvements everywhere, but with nothing specific. And you just don't really notice any like change in your physique and your cardiovascular fitness because again, there's no structure to it. It's just you training as hard as possible. So again, we're going in, yes, we're doing things that's going to be good. We need to exercise, but if we have these poor training methods, it's going to lead to these other host of issues, right? And again, you're going to be spending that time working out, thinking you're doing the right things. And then you're going to be upset because you're not seeing the change you want. And then on top of it, if we're not taking care of things outside the gym, which most people usually, this type of person, I feel like usually then also doesn't sleep very well. They have a lot of stress, even though they don't think they do. And it just, again, leads to these issues where, cortisol's high, and that can lead to that preferential fat gain in the midsection there. Again, we're not sleeping well. Again, we talked about that. Then you also don't have a good diet quality on top of it. And it's just this trickle down effect. So next, poor gut health. So poor digestion, food intolerances, gut dysbiosis. This can lead to bloating and distension, making the midsection look larger even at lower body fat percentages. Poor gut health usually stems from poor diet quality, sleep habits, and high chronic stress levels. So again, all these things there, those three things are all things that can lead to issues with your gut. And when we have that, again, this could be something where you aren't necessarily gaining body fat, but you have this like bloat or distension, and that you think then that you have more body fat than you actually do, when really we need to look at how all these things fit in. So for example, I have a client now, she's changed her eating around to where she's eating higher food volume, and she's saying that she wants to lose more in her midsection, and she feels like she's gaining weight there. And it's okay, you're exercising regularly, we have your food under control. Yeah, your weight's up a little bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're gaining body fat. And so I'm just saying, is it partly because maybe you have more food, like you're eating more food in general, right? Not necessarily more calories, but you're eating more food in general from food volume, and you're not just like trying to restrict yourself all the time. So you have more like food in your system at any one time, and that in turn makes you like, maybe you just have a little bit more food there, so then that's a different feeling than what you're used to, and so you equate that to fat gain. So again, that's something that can happen there. Age is another big one. As you get older, your hormones will shift, especially if we don't take care of the things that we mentioned earlier. Okay, take men for example. The big kind of hormone that we're talking about here is testosterone. If you're not sleeping well, your stress is high, your body fat levels are high or too low or whatever it may be, that's going to decrease your testosterone over time. Plus, we just have that natural kind of decline in that. We can slow that down by doing the right thing. So there's that. Then now it's this vicious cycle where, again, you have less testosterone, and maybe that's going to increase where you store your body fat, right? For women, again, obviously there's perimenopause. With that comes a decline in estrogen, and estrogen will help shift away fat to your midsection, right? So that's why when women get into menopause, estrogen will typically decrease, and you'll start to see them gain a little bit more body fat in their midsection, right? So obviously there's HRT, women can take that, men can take TRT, right? Again, talk to your doctor about that if you think that's not, and you can't just go on it willy-nilly, see if it is right for you potentially. And because of that, these hormones will shift, right? But again, we still have some things that we can do. Like when it comes to women in particular, as they enter menopause, I think if they aren't taking some form of HRT, it is going to be a little bit harder. But we can still work on these things to help counteract that as much as possible, right? You take person A who doesn't do anything, and there's like my hormones, and they're not focused on any of this boring stuff, right? Managing your stress, improving your diet quality, getting good sleep, like that's not fun stuff, right? But if you take that person who they're just like, it's my hormones, and then they're also like training super hard, under recovered, etc., not eating, trying to eat low calorie, low protein, etc., all those good things. You take that person and they're just blaming it on their hormones. And then you take person B who's like, yeah, I know my hormones aren't necessarily in the greatest spot. I know there's going to be some change. I'm still going to try to maximize my sleep as best as I can, understanding that could be challenging in this time frame. I'm going to find better ways to manage my stress. I'm going to find ways that I'm going to eat foods that feel me best. And I'm not always going to be trying to drop body fat. I'm also going to be trying to add some muscle. Again, if you take that, person B is going to see much better results because they are taking control of that. And it's their mindset versus, hey, it's my hormones and this is just what it is. And then they don't focus on those kind of boring things that, hey, maybe 10, 15 years ago, you didn't have to worry about, but now you do. So again, also as we age, our bodies are less resilient to stress and damage. So it just makes these situations worse, especially especially if, again, we're not taking care of those things like outside of the gym, like I talked about. So those are going to be the main reasons why fat gain is going to be a little bit more preferential to your midsection over time, right? So again, I'm sure there's multiple things here that people are like, I could work on that, I could work on that. And that's just going to make things, it's going to start to move things in our favor, right? Maybe it's never going to be perfect, but again, if you haven't focused on those things, I would start to do that versus just, hey, I want to drop body fat. I want to lose fat in my midsection. So I'm just going to train 6-7 days a week, high intensity training. I'm going to move 20,000 steps and I'm just going to eat as little as I can. Again, that's not going to, like, you need to have these other things in check there. So that's why with the Body Recomp Blueprint, we focus on 5 pillars, right? So we focus on progressive building, muscle building, and cardio training methods, right? So again, we have structured training programs designed to build muscle and improve overall health and metabolic flexibility and performance, and not just random hard workouts, right? We have strategic nutrition methods, and we have these nutrition approaches tailored to the person in terms of where they're at, right? So again, whether that be, hey, certain foods don't sit well with you, hey, we need to change that up. Maybe you do a little bit better with a higher fat, lower carb approach. Maybe you do better with a more moderate protein approach. Maybe you need to work on your overall diet quality, right? So and maybe for you, you don't necessarily need to be in a calorie deficit right now. We need to take time away from that. So again, we have to be strategic with our nutrition versus just, hey, you want to lose body fat? Okay, here's 1,200 calories. Do this. Movement optimization, right? So that's the third pillar. We want to have daily activity strategies to increase calorie expenditure and to improve metabolic health and to regulate our appetite. And it's just good for our long-term health as well too. Lifestyle and recovery optimization. So sleep, stress management, and recovery techniques to balance your hormones and to support fat loss and muscle gain. So again, those kind of boring things are super important, and most people aren't optimizing that, or they're just so far away from optimizing it. They don't need to optimize it. They just need to make it better. And then we have mindset mastery, right? So building habits and mental resilience to sustain progress and long-term results. So again, we need to make sure mentally we are working on that to make this sustainable long-term. Again, this is the last day to apply for the Body Recomp one-on-one coaching blueprint. This is the winter cohort. So again, doors will shut. So if you are interested in this, you can sign up for a call in the show notes, or you can reach out to me on Instagram, DM me Body Recomp Blueprint, and we can chat about it in more detail. So that's it for this episode. Let me know if you have any other questions, and I will talk to you soon.